Hello there, amazing, fabulous entrepreneur. It's Tash Corbin here, and welcome to another episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. This is episode number 157, and you can find all the show notes plus a little freebie that I've got for you today over at tashcorbin.com/157. Now, today we're talking about sales conversations. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and it's something that I know women in business in particular really struggle with. And I'm going to teach you how to structure a sales conversation so that you're maximizing the number of perfect clients who actually convert while staying aligned to your values and not jumping into the space of convincing, pushing, or trying to force people through a process. So if that sounds like something you'd love to learn, then stay tuned. Let's get started. Now, what do I mean by a sales conversation? What I'm talking about here is either at the end of an introductory session or in a conversation of its own, you're speaking with someone about a course or about your coaching program or about a package of services that you might have to offer. And you need to, number one, understand what their needs are. Number two, propose that they jump into something. And then number three, deal with objections and help actually close the sale. So these are one-on-one conversations that you're having with people in which the objective of the conversation is for you to get them to jump in and purchase something of yours if they are the right fit. So as I said, this could either be a standalone conversation. For example, they book in a free 15-minute conversation to see if it's a good fit, or it could also be at the end of a single session or another package of sessions. So let's say you offered an introductory session, they've paid $97 to spend an hour with you, and at the end of that conversation, you would like to broach the subject of whether or not it's appropriate for them to continue working with you and how that might happen. So whether it's a standalone conversation or it's on the end of a conversation, I generally recommend that you follow the same process. So number one, I warn people that we are going to have a conversation about something or other else through this process. So if it's a single session and we're going to actually do some work together first, at the start of the session, I will say, here's how this session is going to roll out. First of all, I'm going to ask you a heap of questions. Then I'm going to see where I can provide the most value, and we can set you up with a few strategies moving forward. And then at the end of the call, if you'd like, we can talk about how we can keep working together. Does that sound okay? So I'm actually warning them that we're going to talk about them potentially working with me further. That I'm giving them the heads up that there will be a sales pitch as part of this conversation. And by saying, is that okay? I'm also getting a little bit of permission from them as well. So there's a little bit of a preempt there, whether it's the free conversation or whether it's in a paid conversation. And that, for me, actually helped me to calm down. That helped me to get over my, there's going to be a sales pitch at the end kind of mindset wobbles, as much as it helped that person be prepared for it as well. So number one, as early as possible, let them know that you are going to be presenting a way for you to keep working together towards the end of the conversation. Number two is asking questions and digging in. So for me, I will not make a pitch for my products or services if I don't actually know that it's a fit. And this is actually where a lot of people struggle with a masculine-oriented sales process, because you only ask questions or do digging in a lot of cases, and the way that a lot of people teach, once you get to objection. So once you've done your pitch. But for me, I think particularly for women in business, and particularly for those of us who'd like to balance our masculine and feminine energy in our processes, it's actually much more powerful and much more aligned to start asking some questions first and make sure it's actually the thing that they need. Make sure that the thing you're about to propose is going to help them get the outcome that they're looking for. So I generally have a good set of 3 to 4 questions that I'll ask people about what's going on in their business. What are they looking for? What are their big challenges right now? What are their plans? I know the kinds of questions that I want to ask people in order to know, well, how can I actually help this person, not just sell to this person. And that's the big difference. So I love to ask lots of questions. You might like to write down a bunch of questions and have them as a little pick and mix for you on the side of your screen so that you can make sure you've ticked off the things that you need to know. And I must say, when I was first doing sales conversations, I did have a little checklist and ready reference there. It made me feel safe. It meant that there were no awkward, oh, I don't know what to say next kind of moments. It made me feel really confident and comfortable with the process. So have a think about questions the way that you would ask them and the things that are pertinent to you helping almost recommend a course of action for that person. Now, the other thing that I will say here is that I'm very open to recommending that the person doesn't work with me. It takes a very strong sense of self-confidence, but I think it's an important thing for us to nurture and practice to be able to say to someone, you know what, I actually don't think I'm the right person for you right now. What I would recommend is you do X, Y, and Z, and here are some peeps that I recommend. Or I can send you an email and introduce you to someone who'd be great for you. That for me, once I started really nailing that and really being discerning about who was a good fit and who was not, it really made a difference to the way that I operated in my business and the results and conversions that I did get once I started, really nailing that messaging and being really clear on who I could and couldn't help. So I would be making sure that you've got that mindset of not bringing people onto a call and be like, I have to make the sale at all costs, but tune into yourself. How confident do you feel to be able to say, you know what, I don't think I'm the right fit for you. I don't know that this is going to help you get what you need. What you need is this. And really that presents you as an expert in your field. And I've had a lot of people who I've said, this isn't a Tash question. This is a messaging issue. Go talk to Steph Hewlett or go talk to Kim Mulcahy or whoever it might have been. They've gone and done that work and then they've come back to me and then they're ready to work with me. And the amount of times it has happened is more than the amount of times it hasn't. So it's a really beautiful thing to be able to do as well. So back to the process. Number 1 is let them know that the conversation is going to involve a sales pitch. Number 2, ask lots of questions, do some digging to the areas that are pertinent. Now, you will get better at that process and faster at that process as you practice, but just start practicing now and just start asking lots of questions. Number 3 is permission. Now, whether it's at the end of a free session or whether it's a standalone sales conversation, I still ask for permission. And the way that I do that is I will say, look, it sounds to me like you need blah. Would you like me to tell you how we can do that together? They are my words. It took me thousands of different sentences and questions to practice to do that permission sequence and find something that felt really good for me. You're welcome to use my words to get you started, but that really felt comfortable for me. And so, people will say either yes or no. Now, some people signed up for a free 15-minute sales conversation with me. I've asked a couple of questions and I've said, you know what, it sounds to me like you need help with your social media strategy. Would you like me to tell you how we can do this together? And the person's gone, you know what, I think you're right. And actually, I haven't even focused on my social media. So no, I'm just going to go away and do that for now. It's like, cool, no worries. Let's close it up. There is no point in me giving my sales pitch to this person if they're not actually open to hearing a sales pitch right now. So I still ask that question, even if it's just a sales conversation that we're having, and especially if I'm on a session with someone and I want to talk about their next steps. Because with those people who are in the single session, it's like a little trip, it's like a little tipping point, and it's basically indicating, okay, the strategy part of this session is now over. We've got to the point where you've got your beautiful little plan that we've mapped out together, or we've worked on that thing that you wanted to work on. Now it's time for us to close up and talk about next steps from here. So that's a really great way to do it as well, and it really helps me to like move the conversation then into the sales pitch part of it. And if they say yes, then the first thing that I do after that yes is I ask another question. And the reason being is that you want to make sure that you're presenting the exact right thing for that person. And if I say to them, would you like me to tell you how we can do that together? And they say, yes, absolutely. I will say, okay, are you thinking short term or long term? Or I will ask, are you thinking like short and intense and let's get it all done at once, or would you like to do this over a few months? So I'm asking the question on how they want to work before I present a bespoke way of us actually doing that together. So that's part A for me is actually, and step number 4 is to ask another question to help me understand how they're wanting to work with me. Now, some people will say, I don't really know. What do you recommend? And I'll just jump in and I will recommend something based on the conversation that we've had and the digging that I've done so far. Number 5 is then I do the pitch. So I will say, okay, well, what I think we should do is have fortnightly sessions. We'll do 4 fortnightly sessions. They'll be an hour each. And normally I charge $1,495 a session. But if we put all 4 sessions together and pay up front, it's $4,500. What do you think? Now, you'll notice that step number 6 is shush. And this is something that we talk about a lot in my academy and in the 100 Days of Color program, is how hard it is to shush, but how important it is as well. And so once you've made your pitch, it's so important for you to stop talking. Because a lot of the time, and I've seen this so many times, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of these sales pitches, is someone's given me a little pitch of something and I'm thinking in my head, that sounds really great. And then I wait for them to shush so I can say, yes, how do I pay you? And they don't shush. And then they say, but if you want to do it this way, it's this way. And if you would like a payment plan, it's this much. And if this, and if this. And all I get at the end is confused. And I was about to say, yes, take my money, shut up and take my money. And then by the end of the time, they've like had these 6 conversations with themselves and then they've shushed. I'm like, I don't really know. Actually, I'm a bit confused now. And so what I would say is don't preempt objections. That's my number 1 piece of advice for sales conversations, is don't come up with all the objections in your head and try and address them up front. You're not a sales page. You are a person. You are there capable of answering those objections that people have if it is an objection that they have. If they don't have that objection, you addressing it is actually not going to do any service to that person. All you're doing is wasting their time. So be silent, and then step 7 is answer objections and questions. So if they then say to you, oh, okay, that sounds great. Is there a payment plan? Because I'll probably have to pay this off. Then you can tell them about the payment plan. If they say, oh, I don't know about this. If after the first session, I'm not 100% sure, do you have a refund policy? Then you can tell them the refund policy. If they say, oh, that sounds like it might actually be a bit too intensive for me, can we spread it out over 4 months instead of 2 months? Then you can tell them that they're able to spread it out over 4 months instead of 2 months. And you can make decisions on the fly about what things you're willing to do, how much you're willing to space it out, and what the price point or price difference will be if you change that bespoke package to fit that person a little more closely. So wait for the questions, wait for the objections. Don't address them in advance just in case that's an objection or question the person has. That actually means that you come across as much more confident in your work, and also gives you an opportunity to see what people are saying when they get that initial sales pitch from you as well. So when you do go and do that sales pitch as a written sales pitch in Facebook groups or on your page, you will know what the obvious and most common questions are that people have, and you can address them up front there, because you're not having a one-on-one conversation there on your sales page. You're not having a one-on-one conversation there on your Facebook page. You are broadcasting that information. Now, step number 8 is if it's a no and they say, no, look, it's not a good fit for me at this time, or they've got something that's, that they say, no, I'm good, thanks, then close up with an agreement to follow up. So what I will do is if they say no, I'll say, no problems at all. Is it okay if I follow up with you in a couple of weeks on email and see how you're going from the session? And they might say, yeah, that's great. Or some people will say, no, I just don't think we're a great fit, thanks. And I will say, okay, no worries. I've got you on my mailing list. Did you want me to remove you? So I can actually then, like, if they're a hard no and like we're definitely not a match, then chances are they don't want to be on my mailing list either. Like they're actually like, your voice really annoys me. I don't want to listen to you ever again. So I do the admin tidy up then and there just to make their, like, so I'm not annoying them in their inbox, and I know that my list is only full of people who are really excited about working with me. So that's a really good thing, right? So, if it's a no, close up with an agreement to follow up, or with an agreement to remove them from your mailing list, or, you know, take care of that admin as well. If it's a yes, then get the money as soon as possible. So I know a lot of people will say, okay, cool, no worries. I'll send you through an invoice later, and then we'll book your first session. And like, you have instantly made this hard work for your client. So generally what I say to people is, would you like to pay with credit card or PayPal? They're the two options that I have available. Or sometimes I'll also say bank transfer if it's an Aussie person, and particularly if it's a big amount of money, save myself some fees there. But I will say, you know, what is your preferred payment method? And then I will, if it's PayPal or credit card, I can actually process that payment straight away there on the call. And people know that I have a great refund policy, so there's, you know, not freaking out about that. Other people will say, oh, can you send me an invoice and I can pay that on Friday? Then I will do that, but they have to ask for it. So you can see here how this is like a conversation, and it's like you start with your piece, and then if they need something different, they ask for something different. But you present the action that you would like them to take now, and that's your preference. My preference is for you to pay right now. Can you pay right now? You know, it doesn't have to be that blunt in its wording, but it's all about finding those words that are going to work for you. Now, step number 10 for me in the sales conversation is a review. And after every sales conversation, I sit down for 2 minutes and I do a little review. What were the main questions that the person asked? What were some of the objections that they had that I hadn't thought of? What can I learn from this? What can I learn from it if it's a yes? What can I learn from it if it's a no? And give myself a little review straight after that sales conversation, because that is when everything's going to be fresh in my mind. So I'm going to recap these 10 steps to a sales conversation for you, because I know I've presented a lot of information, but I think it's something that ultimately comes down to practice, and it's something that we are all going to get good at as we go forward, and it's a non-negotiable skill for entrepreneurs, so we're going to have to start learning sooner or later, right? Are you with me? So step number 1, warn them nice and early that there's going to be a sales pitch as part of the conversation today. Step number 2, ask questions, dig in, get some information first so you can present something that's actually going to help them achieve what they're looking to achieve. Step number 3, get their permission. Would you like me to tell you how we can do this together? Sounds like you needed this. Would you like me to tell you how I can do that for you? Whatever it might be, find your words, but get that permission from them. Number 4 is ask your first question. So the first question about actually packaging it up. Intensive or more spread out, long-term, short-term, in-person versus online, you know, whatever options that you have available to people. Have a think about a really meaningful, good question that can help you tailor something that's going to work for people. Number 5 is your pitch. Number 6 is the shush. 6, shush. Number 7, answering questions and objections. Number 8, if it's a no, close up with an agreement to follow up. Number 9, if it's a yes, get the money, make it easy. And number 10, do that little review. Now, if this is something that you really need to work on and you would love to learn more about sales and conversions, I actually have a great freebie for you this week on the podcast episode. It is my Sales and Conversions Masterclass recording. This was a live masterclass that I did in mid-2018, and it was super popular and has had significant shifts for women in the Lady Posse. And if you would like to grab that, you'll find it with the show notes at tashcorbin.com/157. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the Heart Centered Business Podcast. It has been super fun sharing my sales conversation process with you. Until next time, I've been Tash Corbin. You have been a fabulous listener, and I cannot wait to see you shine. Big love from me, and bye for now.